Well, welcome to Comic Book Wednesdays, a weekly series where we talk about comic books. We're your hosts. I'm Ian.
Howdy, I'm Al.
I'm Shane. How's it going?
Again, if you enjoy our content, please subscribe, like, comment, ring that bell, right, guys?
Ring the bell!
This week, we were reading issues of Avengers by Jonathan Hickman, issues 10, 11, and 12, as we make our way closer and closer to Secret Wars. Um, just before we really get into the meats and potatoes here, just thoughts on our issues generally. I was a little underwhelmed for the most part. I guess the first one that we read was probably my favorite.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I thought the first one was pretty good. Second one kind of fell flat for me. Third one I actually kind of enjoyed. We got a new kind of aspect in Hyperion. I thought that was pretty interesting. We got to see a little bit how his mind works and stuff like that. I felt like with him trying to teach the kids that came from the origin bomb and him conversing with Thor, I really thought that it gave us a new kind of outlook on Hyperion.
I see that. I see what you're saying. Yeah. So a lot of good character moments for Hyperion in the third issue. Um, I wonder if that's going to go anywhere. Are we going to get more like substantial Hyperion stuff? Is that what they're pushing? You know?
I hope so, because it did feel like a little. I do agree with that. It felt like a little slow to me. I understand that they needed to get some of these story bits out, but I often kind of felt like, okay, I get it. You guys are dealing with some shit.
Yeah.
Um, uh, Refresh me on the first episode. I can't quite remember what that issue was about.
Yeah, we had the AIM calling in to help, and
Oh, right. So the first issue was the people from Canada.
The Alpha
They
Force
right.
Project
I wanted
H.
Yeah, I wanted to speak on that a little bit because I enjoyed the fact that we got to see a group of superhumans from another country. Like,
that was
yes,
cool.
we 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 understand the Avengers and what we get from them, but seeing uh, the H Force or whatever they were called was really kind of cool that they went into that detail and you got to see it from a different angle. Like these these teams, yeah, the Avengers are a team and they work for the US and do their thing, but you never, at least from my experience, get an outside perspective of it. Like seeing it from Canada's view was really cool to me.
Yeah, you don't necessarily get that enough. I agree with you on that. I really like seeing the Alpha Force, and like we need more of them. I think they're a cool group. Those familiar with the '90s X-Men show might remember some episodes with them in it. They even had a character by the name of Puck, like hockey puck,
Yeah.
and he was like almost like a pinball. He'd like go all over the place. He's really cool. Fun tidbit also, I think Wolverine was on Alpha Force at one point because he's
Yeah,
from Canada.
and seeing the interaction between Wolverine and Alpha Force was pretty cool too, because you could tell there was some animosity there.
Yeah, there's definitely some history. Um, and this issue primarily focuses on the Alpha Force kind of like going missing. They go into this like biologically hazard zone that Ex Nihilo has kind of like infected the Earth with. But there's like 7 points, and one of them is in Canada. So it's they kind of bring in the Avengers to try to get inside because they're doing everything they can to get in and just have no luck.
And they go in such brutal ways.
Oh my god, yeah, like one guy's chest cavity is ripped open and like
Yeah.
he's like held open upside down. Um,
Well,
how to,
and from the first episode to the third episode, it's interesting to see how it's not just these creatures that want to destroy the world or replace what's here. Like in the third issue, we've got these children that come from the origin bomb, rather than from the first episode than these creatures that are just ripping apart the Alpha Force.
Right.
It's a very interesting duality because you have these, to jump around a little bit with a third issue, where they're, with that first issue where, the brutal things happen to the Canadian force, and then there's the children where they're like, yeah, we should probably teach them some shit.
Yeah, it's definitely a different take on how the Avengers handled things. Almost like they learned, but I don't think they know enough to learn from them. You know what I mean?
But
And
it's
then
like,
there's Spider-Man being sketch as hell.
I actually felt like Spider-Man was more towards the way we usually see Spider-Man.
I don't know, because, I mean, Spider-Man was literally trying to teach those kids not to trust anybody. Don't trust anyone was his message. When he was supposed
That's
to be
very
teach...
un-Spider-Man-like.
Yeah, he was supposed to...
But it also isn't. Like, you see kind of some of that from Spider-Man, I feel like, across some of the comics. Like, he's gotten
I'd be
so
willing to give that to you.
abused by so many enemies that you kind of got a feel for Spider-Man in that aspect where he's like, don't trust anybody, Like, how many times has Spider-Man been brutally abused?
I see what you're saying, but in the same sense, he was given an assignment to teach these children about trust, and his lesson to them is don't trust anyone.
Yeah.
That's kind of sketch.
Yeah, no, it definitely was, but I thought it was a fun interaction.
It definitely made me laugh a little bit because now that you put it in that context, I initially was like, oh, what happened to Spider-Man? Like, is he possessed? What is going on here? But looking at it from that light, it's very much this is the Spider-Man who has seen so much of the real world that the light inside him has died and he does not know how to handle that reality.
Right, I mean, we're not getting Midtown High Spider-Man. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like this Spider-Man is, I don't know this for a fact, but I feel like it's on the other side of Eastern
the Empire State.
He goes to Empire State. Like, he's past the point of always being the nice guy and trying to believe in everybody, and is okay, this is grown-up Spider-Man we're dealing with here. In a sense.
I like your point of view on it. I like that take. I can't wait until we can read some Spider-Man as a group and dive more into his character. I feel like there is a lot of good talking points on the personality and the mental state of Peter Parker, and we could literally just do a show on that.
For sure.
We've kind of dodged this second issue a little bit here. I don't think there is a whole lot to dive into, but let's just kind of go over it a little. So we have the Avengers learn about an AIM, I guess, sale, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're afraid that
they
AIM is...
start out the issue thinking that they're going to infiltrate this... I don't know what you would call it, a gambling night for AIM. And, then Natasha finds out that they're not actually selling, they're the ones buying.
Right.
Which I don't see a lot of connection to the rest of the storyline at this point. Obviously, they're going to dive more into that, I would hope. But
yeah.
It doesn't seem like this episode was properly placed to me yet.
I mean, maybe something's going to come in the upcoming ones. It feels very out of place. I mean, in between two issues, that deal with the origin bomb epicenters in two different parts of the world, being Canada and the Savage Lands. You then have one about AIM. Now, AIM does have their own origin bomb epicenter, and like maybe that's how it's going to tie in a bit. They're buying some muscle to protect their place, or they're going to form these. Maybe they've been injecting people with the origin bomb stuff. Maybe they're going to hire muscle, inject them with it, and create this army or something, and that's how it's going to tie in. But as of right now, it felt very all over the place. To me, it jumped from like people sitting casino to talking to Shang-Chi fighting way too often. It was just like kind of all over the place. Just quick pause because we kind of delivered our thing here. I'm going to set up my posse and we just go to mine and run mine real fast. Is that cool?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Yeah, sounds good.
As far as the character that he's fighting, I really didn't get a sense of why he was fighting him, or like what the point of that whole interaction was. Did anybody have an opinion on why that was going on, or was that just some random encounter that they decided to throw in there?
That honestly threw me off a little bit because I honestly thought up until the very end that Shang-Chi was just training, because that just seemed like something that he would be doing.
I agree
And
with that,
then
yeah.
all of a sudden he's like, "No, this is the real reason," and like it did feel very out of place.
Yeah, no, it just was like kind of copied and pasted. It felt like maybe it could have been somewhere else and just placed in there. I mean, we learned that like he was fighting him for information at that point. Like I don't know if he was doing reconnaissance and got caught. And like, because I mean, at points it was saying like, "Oh, keep a low profile," and then it would cut to Shang-Chi like beating up ninjas, and like, so that leads me to believe that like, yeah, he was supposed to keep this low profile, but didn't, and that's why he was fighting. And then he got the information he needed, which was that AIM was buying an army.
And they never really show him defeating that character either. Like, it's just kind of like he shows up on the plane at the end of the issue saying that they were buying instead of selling. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it really was not a cohesive set of issues, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think as far as like our weeks have gone so far, this one has been the least cohesive. That issue number 11 being my least favorite so far.
Same.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hopefully we don't have any more conversations like this going forward. I mean, like I just if there's
I mean, considering how the rest of even jumping back and forth from New Avengers to Avengers, I felt like there's been more cohesiveness than what we got out of these three. So I don't think that's gonna be the case.
I'm inclined to agree.
This set of issues did not sit well with me. In a sense, that it was so back and forth.
Yeah, it felt very fillery too.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
Like what we were saying earlier, Ian, it was kind of just like they just threw it in for no reason.
Yeah, you know what? There might be a reason which will come to fruition soon. It just doesn't seem to be happening all that yet. Maybe we'll have a different answer next week. And just stay tuned. You know. All right, I'm starting this delivery. But to get kind of going to the third issue now, we see the High Evolutionary, and he's cool. He's big on genetically modifying creatures, humans, things like that. He's famous for creating Rocket Raccoon. I don't know what he's going to do, but for him to get these higher evolutionary creatures, I'm over here if someone wants to hop on with me, but I'm just going to...
it was a very cynical entrance for him in this episode. I feel like you get the Avengers trying to teach these kids the right way to be, with
Uh huh.
Hyperion and Thor sending him on that mission to go find the stone,
Mm-hmm.
and then him just like bursting out of the spaceship, being like, "I've got a different way for you guys to view things." Like it was just like it seemed like he's gonna go a bad way with these kids.
Oh yeah.
I'm also glad you explained it because I was missing that context. Seeing him, I was just like, oh, that's just an evil red dude. He just looks evil. I'm glad you confirmed my suspicions. I appreciate that.
No, yeah. Where do you think we're going with these origin bomb locations? Like, how do you think this is going to play out as far as long term? I'm curious.
So I'm wondering if there's some kind of like through Earth connection between them. Like whether it's they become a portal to each other or something to that effect, or they just are the different effects of how they will be affecting the Avengers later down the road. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I wish I knew. Like, I wish I read this before because like I want to have some foresight to it, but I'm like, I got no clue where they're going with this. Having read Secret Wars myself before, like I know the end game and where things are, and I'm like, where does this tie in? Um, I'm sure Hickman's gonna weave it beautifully. Like
Oh,
he's just so good at writing, and like I've always been pleased with whatever I've read from him. Um,
I was saying to you before we started the cast tonight that I really enjoyed seeing the Savage Lands in this episode, because like I said to you, the first time I saw that was in a an X-Men comic that I have, and I think it's really cool how he portrays these locations and really gives you a feel for them. Like it's really interesting seeing the back and forth of them going here and them going there, and then working through the problems that come with them,
yeah.
let alone the natural problems that you have with places like the Savage Lands, where you're dealing with the dinosaurs and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely.
See, it honestly makes me think that, and this is just my growing thing, like looking at the bombs and things. With that piece where they had the brain of the Earth come out, that scene has always left like a weird feeling for me because I feel like they were going to do more with that. I feel like that was just a teaser. And so me personally, I think that they're going to do something where they have the Earth itself come alive in some sort of way. That's just my ongoing guess. I'm excited to see where it goes.
I can see that happening.
That could kind of tie back into what I was saying. Maybe not portal towards one to the other, but an infectious being that they have to figure out. Okay, maybe we have to destroy each section of these areas to get the whole thing to stop infecting the whole Earth. You know what I mean? Is
Mm-hmm.
something I thought about maybe.
Yeah, I don't know if it's gonna be more nefarious or something good. I'm hoping it's not nefarious because it'd be kind of so cool to see the Earth kind of like transform for like a good, positive way that keeps you on your toes, though, because it's going to be so different. I kind of think that like whatever it is, we're going to see it soon because like the Vindicator says to her father that the system is online, and then he kills himself. Right, so that's kind of crazy.
Which I totally did not expect.
I didn't
know that was his daughter at all, or that he was gonna just stand there and blow his brains out.
Yeah, I was like, I was surprised at that. That's why I thought that issue was so good. It had nice twists, turns. It had some cool visuals. and a nice mystery. Like I like it when a book kind of gives you something in a non-linear fashion. You have like the end of it kind of at the beginning, and you're like, well, let's learn how we got here, and it still manages to throw a twist at you, which I thought is really good.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the first book. I thought it was really well done. You know, like we said earlier, the second and third book were meh, but that one by far was the best book.
Definitely. Final thoughts on the comics, guys, before I think maybe we talk a little bit of She-Hulk.
I'm excited. I think I don't know what the next set of books is. I'm hoping it's still Avengers, but you know, if it is going back to new Avengers, I think it'll be cool either way. So that's
Okay.
Shane?
I'm excited to see where they take it. It's definitely been. I have like my own little personal theories, and like each time like one of those little twists and turns happen, it's definitely good writing. And
see,
like we were saying with the first issue, it just there's an ongoing theory that I have, and every time I think I'm like, oh, what if it's this? It just twists it, and I enjoy that.
That's what I love about this too, is because like I have my own theories, and I'm sure they're a little bit different than yours. And every time I'm like, well, I didn't expect that, you know, like.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
So let's move to She-Hulk.
Yeah.
I watched it a while ago, so I don't really remember what happened. If somebody could remind me, or
this is the one where spoiler alert for everybody, that Titania had trademarked She-Hulk, and they were going through like they having a court case of like, is she actually using She-Hulk, or did she give it up? And Titania is actually like the owner of it now. And so there was the court case and like the little subplots within that.
Yeah. And like they show that she uses the dating app as She-Hulk, which then shows that she indeed uses the name She-Hulk. And then also there's a subplot of her getting her costume, which for me had the biggest payoff.
Oh, that was so good.
That was so
that
cool.
Was so good.
Oh man, I cannot wait for this week's episode. He has
the meme of Leonardo DiCaprio whistling because he was like, client confidentiality. I'm like, who? Oh, there it is. There it is.
That's a thing. Now it brings me to a question: is the Daredevil Netflix show canon? Because Daredevil has a guy that makes him his costume already.
So
they said that it wasn't though.
Well, remember at the end of the Daredevil show, he got abused by Bullseye,
right,
to make the new costume so maybe he's not the guy anymore, you know?
It might not be.
I feel like from what I've read, you know, it's not gonna be a fourth season, but it's not gonna be a new season of anything.
It's almost like a rebirth, or born again, right?
Yeah, that's the name of it, right? So we should be expecting something to that effect, you know? Like, I think it will be. I don't know if it will be canon. I hope it is still, because I really enjoyed it, but we'll see, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
It made me think a little bit about like something that they had said where they were like, okay, the Netflix shows, none of them are canon, but it also makes me think of the Spider-Man movies. So with the Spider-Man movies, we did not get, like the new ones with Tom Holland, we did not get an origin story. It was, here's a couple of lines where he like rehashes it when he's sitting there on the bed with Tony when he gets first introduced in Civil War, and everyone just kind of accepts like, okay, this is Spider-Man. I want to say that like my initial feeling is that that's what Daredevil is going to be. Like there's going to be a few lines that like rehash some things, and then it's just going to get right into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is fair. I think that, like, you don't want to do another origin. They don't have to do that. We know who this character is. It's literally the same actor again. So like, let's just pick up things here.
Right. And I mean, I have my issues with the new Spider-Man. Like we didn't get a Harry Osborn, we didn't get a Norman Osborn, which are quintessential Spider-Man characters for me.
But they're also Empire State characters.
Okay.
What does that mean?
Except that Harry and Peter were best friends growing up.
No, they weren't. The original run of Spider-Man, he does not meet Harry until he goes to Empire State, and they're not even friends at first. He's friends with Flash Thompson, so him and Flash actually make fun of Pete a lot, and that's also where they met Gwen for the first time. So Harry and Gwen were like lab partners.
That's what would have reading those comics would have gotten me. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I learned so much from reading Stan Lee's initial run on Spider-Man. It's so good. I mean, like, Betty Brant is his, like, first love interest. Well, Liz Allen and then Betty Brant. They're his two first love interests, and he actively avoids meeting Mary Jane. Like, where I'm reading, he still hasn't met Mary Jane yet. He just keeps on running away from Aunt May whenever she brings up the blind date that she's trying to set him up on. He's met Gwen, but like he's being a total jerk to Gwen because Aunt May's in the hospital, so he keeps on giving her the cold shoulder because he's so worried about Aunt May. So Gwen thinks he's a jerk, so she's inclined to agree with Flash and Harry, who also thinks Pete's a jerk. So it's weird.
So I have kind of one question, I think, before we move on from this topic. Do you think they'll retcon that and the fact that Norman in the last movie, I forget what it was called, was
No Way Home.
There's somebody else living in my house and Oscorp doesn't exist? Like, is that going to be taken away?
They might retcon it. I don't. It really depends. When does the next Spider-Man happen? Does it happen before or after Secret Wars? Like,
right? Who knows?
Right. So, we'll see. There's a lot that they can do. I think they kind of wrote themselves into a corner there. So, but we'll see. I mean, what can you do? I think maybe we should wrap up here. Or you guys have something else you want to add about She-Hulk before we go? Or
no.
Go
ahead, Shane.
Okay, so for me with She-Hulk, one of the things I've continuously liked was the slice of life thing that it's been going on. Mm-hmm. Every superhero has like the hero's journey arc where they overcome some sort of obstacle and accept the fact that they are a hero. Now, Jen didn't exactly do this, but
in fact, she's been fighting it the whole way along.
Yeah, and having that moment where she was like, okay, I embarrassed myself in front of everyone by having these people here. I went to such a length to prove that I am She-Hulk. I need to fucking own up to it now, is the feeling that I got, which I thought was a nice way of how a normal person would handle this.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, I very down to earth point of view.
I feel like the last episode, I don't want to say it gave it some distance, but it feels like there could be a direction that it might be going now.
I think so. We're halfway through the show now. There's 9 episodes. We got through 5. So like we're at this point where things are going to develop a little bit. We're going to have like 2 or 3 like what's the deal with the people trying to steal her blood? You know, is she going to accept becoming a hero? And I think Matt's going to have a large part in that.
And the super clingy guy being there again.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. There's going to be some progression there, and then we'll have a falling action, and just kind of like she's going to settle in, and then there's going to be some tie to a movie down the line, you know, as we wrap up the show. And it's like they're kind of like their basic formula here. They're going to figure a way to tie this into something else while trying to keep this its own cohesive story where it's not affected too much by the outside world.
I'd agree.
Yeah. So next week, guys, we are changing it up a little bit. We are reading Avengers 13. We're reading New Avengers number 7, and we are reading Avengers number 14. So we're doing A little bit of both. I've kind of mapped out the rest of our journey towards Secret Wars, trying to give us 3 issues a week.
Thank you for doing the research for this.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I appreciate it because I couldn't do it.
So it gets a little funky. I mean, I would say by the time we get to the 12th, is it 5? I gotta look at it. My dates are a little funky on my map here, on my map out here that I got. But early October, we are going to be getting into our first event, which is called Infinity. And I think I've talked about this before. That's a lot of stuff from Infinity War, literally like the war in Wakanda. That's like literally ripped from that book and put onto the big screen. So that's the first kind of crossover, and it spans for a couple weeks. And then we'll get back into like the meat and potatoes of the run. But as we're reading Infinity, we'll be reading Avengers and New Avengers still because they tie into that book. So
That's cool.
All right. Well, I was going to thank everybody for listening. Again, if you're happy with what we're doing, comment, subscribe, like. If you don't like things about this, let us know. We'd love the feedback.
Constructive criticism. Don't be a dick.
Please.
Zach. Again, I'm Ian.
I'm Al.
I'm Shane.
And this was Comic Book Wednesdays. Have a good night, everybody.
Woohoo!